This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Roland Pulis.
And we are back after a little hiatus of a couple weeks with episode 5 today. We want to thank everybody for bearing with us. We just had a couple of personal situations come up.
Yeah, we had, the first week we had my wife and I welcomed our sixth child into the world. Maverick, both the baby and mother, my member, are doing fine. So if anybody was wondering, that was week 1, and then week 2 with the holidays and stuff, we just had a lot going on, and it was hard to get together. So we didn't want to, have one that didn't, have an episode that didn't sound great or something that was rushed. So we wanted to take our time and give you guys a good episode. So here we are. Here we
are with episode 5, all about Bray Wyatt today. We're going to cover his career starting in NXT all the way to the Fiend character that you see present day.
And, it's worth noting, we'll start off just saying, he's the son of Mike Rotunda, who in WWF at the time, back with the $1 Million Man, he was IRS. He was in WCW as, VK Wall Street, Mr. Wall Street, and whatever they had him as a name, obviously playing off the IRS character.
Yeah.
But, so he was born Wyndham Rotunda, and a lot of people don't actually know that Barry Windham is related to him. He's actually his uncle. So that's where the first name came from, and he has Lawrence, his middle name, and that, I believe, is Mike Rotunda's middle name, too. There's a little bit of lineage there in the name.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, you may be more familiar with who his brother is. His brother is being Bo Dallas, who's another wrestler in the WWE.
Yeah, he was born Taylor Rotunda, in case anybody wants to know. But, he, definitely a lineage with the Wyndhams and the Rotundas in the industry.
Yes, absolutely. So he's going to start off in NXT in summer of 2010. Now, NXT back then was not what it is today. It's not the brand that you see on television and the WWE Network today. It was more of a reality show back then.
It was kind of like a glorified Tough Enough, almost, type format, except you had pros involved with each rookie, essentially. Each NXT rookie had a pro.
Yeah.
And, you remember the Miz and Daniel Bryan, probably the most notable feud that came out of that type of concept, but that's how it started. And every week they do different activities and different
challenges.
I remember Titus O'Neil carrying that keg around, dropping it all over the place and stuff like that. Yep. So it was definitely way more gimmicky than it is now, where it's an actual brand.
And just so you mentioned that there was pros involved, he was under the name Husky Harris at this point.
Horrible name.
No,
Whoever came up with that's horrible. So people that don't realize, he was a little bit bigger than. He's still not a small guy, but he was a little bit rounder at the time. So they're like, well, we're just going to call him Husky Harris. It's a horrible name. Who came up with that? But anyways.
Yeah, and he was partnered with Cody Rhodes. That was his pro partner at that time.
Dashing Cody Rhodes, I would assume, at that time, or around that time anyways.
So his first match while competing under NXT was a tag team match with him and Cody Rhodes against MVP, Montel Vontavious Porter, and Percy Watson. There's a couple of names from the past that we don't talk about much today.
Yeah, no. MVP popped up a little bit in TNA a while back. Impact Wrestling now, but he's pretty much out of the business. He did show up, here and there at one of the reunion. I think one of the SmackDown reunions. He was on TV and wrestling when he was there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's pretty much not really involved anymore.
Sure.
And who knows where Percy Watson is? I have no idea. I have no idea where he is. So.
Yeah. Let's see. He would quickly turn heel, though. He attacked announcer Matt Striker, which is he kind of followed in his pro's footsteps. Cody Rhodes had done that the previous week.
Yeah. Matt Striker, the former announcer, former school teacher.
Yes.
Turned wrestler announcer.
Legit school teacher who actually got fired for taking too many days off. So he could go.
Yep. And they had, in the NXT program, they had like a ranking system of how people were, and this was the whole gimmick, is that you were during this time, you were trying to get up the rankings to win the NXT show at the time, the season, I guess, technically, is what they would call tournament.
Yeah, so he got up as high as fourth place, it looks like, out of the six rookies. And he eventually became eliminated on August 7th. And obviously, though, that's not the end. Because following his elimination, he and Cody Rhodes would attack Cabal, and which also that led to a feud involving MVP and Kofi Kingston as well.
Right. And for people that also are a fan of indie wrestling or lower promotions, Kaval was Low-Key.
Yes.
In TNA and Ring of Honor and stuff like that. So again, another name that's been around for a little while.
And then he would appear on the season finale of NXT when all the other rookies attacked Kaval, who won the show.
Yep.
So after that, he would kind of go back down to their developmental territory for a little bit, which was FCW at the time.
Yep.
He would kind of maintain the Husky Harris ring name.
Well, it's funny too because if you look back at when he was in FCW, some of the names they had for him are horrible. Like at first he was Alex Rotundo. Okay, not too bad.
Yeah.
Then they go with Duke Rotundo, and then they end up with Husky Harris. So like they just kept getting worse.
Yeah. They went with the worst one.
Yeah. They had him stick with the Harris gimmick while he was still in developmental. So he wasn't, since he didn't win, he didn't make the main roster. Essentially, that was the theme of that, anyways.
So later on that year, he would make his debut on WWE pay-per-view, the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. He, along with Michael McGillicuddy, another awful name.
Curtis Axel, Joe Henning, whoever you want. The son of Mr. Perfect, the grandson of Larry the Axe Henning.
They would help Wade Barrett, another name we don't talk about too much today.
Yep.
They would help Barrett defeat John Cena, and as a result, John Cena had to join Barrett's faction, the Nexus. We should probably rewind a little bit and say that Barrett kind of formed a group with all the NXT rookies.
Yeah, the ones that didn't win, essentially, they were outraged. They didn't win, and they kind of joined up, and they were trying to run roughshod on the WWE. I remember the first time they showed up, they tore up the ring.
Yep.
Tore the mat up and everything, and it was kind of a neat gimmick. It was kind of like, it was a precursor to how the Shield kind of debuted. They just showed up and run roughshod on people, and it was kind of a neat gimmick, anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. But so after that match, like we said, that John Cena had to join that group.
So yeah, think of that. You have John Cena joining the Nexus. Further down the road, you have CM Punk leading the Nexus.
Yep.
They were just throwing people that were already on the main roster in the Nexus, trying to make it, they actually made it worse that way, I think. If they just left it the way it was, it probably could have been something pretty impressive.
Yeah, kind of almost like the NWO kind of
has
more of the same power. Yeah, absolutely. But then you had the Core at one point.
The Core,
kind of a split off.
Which was like it was like the NWO Wolfpack,
yes.
essentially, was splitting off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So at the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view, that was October 4th. And then October 18th on Raw, Harris and McGillicuddy failed to earn the place in the Nexus when they lost to Cena and Randy Orton in a tag match. So they were in the Nexus, then they were out of the Nexus, and it was kind of like they were still trying to grasp at what to do with him and McGillicuddy at the time,
sure.
I guess.
Yeah. But they eventually did become inducted into the Nexus. Yeah. And then eventually in January, like we mentioned, CM Punk took over the Nexus and had each member go through an initiation process. And Harris passed, which his was a lashing from the rest of the Nexus.
That doesn't age well.
No, can't really.
No, that's,
this is 2011 too. We're not. This isn't that long ago.
That was that's an interesting way to go.
But you probably couldn't get away with that today. And let's see. And then later on in the month, Husky Harris and Michael McGillicuddy did challenge for the tag team titles against Santino Marella and Vladimir Kozlov. We're
the well-touted team of Marella and Kozlov.
And they were unsuccessful in that match. And then after that, Orton attacked and punted Harris in the head. And that kind of wrote Harris off television for a while.
And it's funny that Randy Orton attacked him because he had nothing to do with any of this.
No,
he just shows up, kicks Harris in the head, and you're gone. We're writing you off TV. See you later.
So he would go back to FCW for a while, which again was WWE's developmental territory at the time. He would pop up though in April of 2012 back in NXT as a brand new character. You may know him now, Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, I actually took the time last week to go back and watch the debut of Bray on NXT at the time. And this is when NXT had been rebranded to an actual show. It was a brand. It wasn't a contest anymore. It was it was like Raw, SmackDown. So kind
of what you see today.
Yeah, the very beginning of what it was. And it was fun to go back and watch the first vignette they had when he debuted. He actually faced one half of the Vaudevillains.
Yep, in English.
And it was a very interesting gimmick to think back that it was 8 years ago this whole thing started, and it was ahead of its time then, I think, for the character he was playing.
Sure, absolutely.
Kind of like the cult leader of like Misfits almost, I guess. It's hard to describe. It's a dark cult-like figure, I guess, a leader.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. There's, it's almost like I think a cult leader, kind of a twisted cult leader.
Yeah.
It's probably the best way to describe it. So he would, during his NXT, well, he would debut Luke Harper and Eric Rowan and become Wyatt family.
Yep. And really, the only one left in that somewhat gimmick right now is Rowan. He still has that big monster, big beard gimmick. We're kind of... Luke Harper is gone now.
Yep.
He got his release. And Bray Wyatt's transformed, but I mean Eric Rowan's still kind of the same guy.
Yeah, absolutely, kind of the same character that he was. Let's see. Now he did have an injury here for a little bit. He came back in February of 2013, where he defeated Yoshi Tatsu.
That's another name too.
We're bringing a bunch of names out today that we're probably never going to talk about again.
Not in long form, anyways. No.
And interesting to note, he would suffer his first loss. As Bray Wyatt to his brother, Bo Dallas. That happened middle of March of that year.
Believe.
And let's see, he would go on, the Wyatt family themselves would have some matches as well. Harper and Rowan would defeat Neville and Oliver Grey to win the NXT tag team titles.
Neville is now Pac in AEW.
They would also go on to feud with Cody Graves. Corey Graves and Cassius Ohno. Corey Graves, obviously the commentator now.
The savior of misbehavior, Corey Graves, and Cassius Ohno, who, what was his name?
He was,
I can't
think of it. It's an obvious name too.
Yes,
Chris Hero.
Thank you.
That's what it was.
Yep. It was Chris Hero on Ring of Honor again on the independent scene, and again the WWE makes you not keep your gimmick unless you're AJ Styles or somebody really big.
Yeah.
But Chris Hero was a pretty well-known name to actually join NXT at the time.
So then, in end of May, around May 27th on Raw, that's when we started seeing the vignettes promoting the debut of the Wyatt family. And these were kind of creepy vignettes, and Rowan was wearing the lamb mask that you might have seen him on television with. So those kind of started around early summer.
He kept the same kind of gimmick. It was the first time anybody that didn't follow NXT got to kind of get a taste of it, and they were definitely... I know that I didn't really watch NXT at that time. I knew about it, but I wasn't really...
Sure.
But to see that on Raw, you were like, wow, who's this guy? Like, what is it like? Because they were definitely different vignettes to be airing at the time. Definitely kind of edgy. It made you want to see what more he was about, and they were about as the Wyatt family.
So they would make their debut on July 8th episode of Raw, where they would assault Kane. And then they would also attack wrestlers such as R-Truth, Heath Slater, Jinder Mahal, Drew McIntyre, Justin Gabriel. And this is kind of when you kind of saw the fall of the Buzzards line kind of start too. They kept sending that to Kane.
Yep. And that you got to remember was pretty much their tagline for the whole time they were there. Wyatt would end almost all of his promos, on his knees with his hands up with Harper and Rowan behind him, yelling, "Follow the Buzzards," and that was kind of like, what does that mean, But again, it was something new and dark that made you want to see what they were going to do next.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it captivated you.
Yep, there you go. Yep, that's a good word.
Yeah. So, this would all lead to a match with Kane at SummerSlam of a Ring of Fire match, which I believe was kind of the essentially an Inferno match.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
They always seem to have Kane in matches where he has to get set on fire or around fire, or he set JR on fire. Well, it's fire and Kane go hand in hand.
Yeah,
clearly.
Absolutely.
I don't know what Bruce Pritchard was thinking when he came up with the Kane, because that's Bruce Pritchard. For anybody that doesn't know, Bruce Pritchard is Brother Love, and he is an agent, a longtime agent for the WWF and E, and he was the one. That's his big claim to fame, is that he came up with the Kane character. So that's his most proudest thing. I don't know if he was thinking that like every couple of weeks he was going to set somebody on fire, but that was, again, we're getting a little off topic, but that was the Kane, thing. He seemed to be associated with fire all the way through.
Mm-hmm. And so Wyatt would win that match, by the way. And then after that, they would kind of feud with CM Punk and Daniel Bryan in late October. And actually at Survivor Series, Punk and Bryan would actually defeat Harper and Rowan. But they would continue their feud because at this point, they're trying to get Daniel Bryan into the Wyatt family.
Yeah, Punk kind of gets phased out of the feud, and Daniel Bryan ends up being the center point of it. And they are doing everything they can to try to get, again, it's kind of like similar like the Nexus thing, where they're trying to recruit people, and they wanted Daniel Bryan in the Wyatt family. I don't know what exactly the reasoning behind it was, but that was the way they went. I mean, maybe because he had the beard and stuff, and he looked like he could have been like a little brother to one of them, like Spike Dudley or something. I don't know, but
and it actually did work. They actually did end up. They ended up attacking Daniel Bryan, and Bryan became very frustrated, so he finally just gave in and joined the Wyatt family.
It was interesting to see Daniel Bryan wearing that like jumpsuit,
yes,
outfit like Rowan wears after when he joined the Wyatt family.
Yeah, that was kind of a little strange.
Yeah, it was weird. It's like, what are you, a janitor?
It didn't last all that long. The Wyatt family, they weren't really doing well after Daniel Bryan joined them, and so Wyatt punished Bryan, and then Bryan retaliated and attacked all the members of the Wyatt family. This is now we're into January of 2014, I believe, and so he kind of, that kind of signaled his breaking up from the group there. And this would lead to a match at the Royal Rumble where Wyatt would defeat Daniel Bryan. So then on January 27th, that Raw, the Wyatt family would attack Daniel Bryan, Sheamus, and John Cena. This was during a Elimination Chamber qualifying match against The Shield. And that actually meant, though, that Bryan's team won by disqualification, and The Shield lost their chance to enter the Elimination Chamber. And so this kind of set up a six-man tag match between The Shield and the Wyatt family at the event, which the Wyatt family would win. But then they would later interfere in the Elimination Chamber match, which led to John Cena being eliminated.
I feel like The Shield and the Wyatt family could have been like a year-long build to something really good if they just let them go with it. But instead they had the idea of pushing Bray Wyatt, the John Cena thing, so they kind of went away from it. But what could have been? I
know. You could have had a lot of classic matches.
I mean, you don't, other than the New Day, you don't really see, I mean, you got the Lucha House Party, but you don't really see any really, like, trios.
No.
And they could have been, between the six of those guys, there could have been some really good matches, whether it was all six of them, whether it was two of them, one, it could have been really, really good.
Could have been almost like, back in the day, you had the Freebirds and the Von Erichs.
Exactly. Yeah, it could have been something like that. I mean, it's hard to fathom why they went away from it, other than the fact they wanted to have the Bray Wyatt Cena, a build, obviously, because they interfered and cost him the match at Elimination Chamber. But yeah, it's funny to look back on because that could have been something really, really good.
So after the Elimination Chamber, we started to see a feud with John Cena and Bray Wyatt, and the whole premise of this was to prove that Cena's whole act as a hero was a lie, that he wasn't really this person, and that he had this inner, I guess, monster inside of him. So this all led to a match at WrestleMania where, in the match, you could see Cena trying to resist the urge of becoming this monster throughout the match.
Right, he was trying not to go to that dark place
that
Bray Wyatt was trying to get him to go to.
Yeah, he wasn't succumbing to that. John Cena would end up winning that match.
No way, John Cena won a match?
I know,
at
right?
WrestleMania?
At WrestleMania, no
wow.
less.
Holy cow. That started the downfall of Bray Wyatt losing matches every pay-per-view almost.
I know. The feud would continue, throughout the next couple months. Wyatt would actually get a victory over John Cena at Extreme Rules on May 4th. This wasn't a cage match. There was some interference there.
Of course.
From the Wyatt family.
You can't beat John Cena clean.
Yes.
Come on.
No, you can't beat John Cena clean.
And then after that, they had a last man standing match at Payback in June 1st, where Cena buried Wyatt under multiple equipment cases to win the match and end the feud. So that feud lasted for almost 6 months, really, from the Royal Rumble, well, the end of the Royal Rumble Elimination Chamber, to the beginning of June.
So then he kind of go on to this. He would just kind of have these kind of various feuds throughout the next couple of months. He would attack a returning Chris Jericho, which led to a match between the two at Battleground where Jericho won, and then would lead to another match at SummerSlam, which would Bray Wyatt would win that one, and then Wyatt would win a steel cage match on an episode of Raw in September, and that kind of ended their feud.
And that was kind of where a lot of the Wyatt steam had kind of run out, I think. I think they kind of rushed some of the stuff, that, like I said, with the Shield, and they kind of rushed to get to the Cena Wyatt at WrestleMania, which kind of cost them some steam, I think, in the whole Bray Wyatt family character.
And so, beginning on late September, there was these vignettes airing where Bray Wyatt was kind of going to release Harper and Rowan.
Setting them free.
Yeah. So that kind of was the end of the Wyatt family for a while.
Yeah, he came back alone at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view at the end of October.
Mm-hmm. And that was during a match between Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, and it cost Ambrose the match.
Right. It was it was the gimmick where Wyatt said he would fix Dean Ambrose, where he had, he kind of the same thing where he wanted to fix John Cena and take him to this place, not fix John Cena, but take him to this dark place and make him do. So Wyatt's continuing this thing of, I can make your mind and make you be who you need to be, or who I think you need to be.
So, yeah, they would have a series of matches. Wyatt would defeat Ambrose in a TLC match at the TLC pay-per-view. And that was actually the main event of the show. They would also... Wyatt would defeat Ambrose again in a street fight on an episode of Raw. And then another episode of Raw, January 2015, he would defeat Ambrose again in a ambulance match. So kind of getting a bunch of wins over Dean Ambrose there.
And that kind of ended the whole Ambrose-Wyatt feud there, the ambulance match, in the first week of January in 2015.
So then after you had the Royal Rumble there, where he lasted about 47 minutes, he eliminated 6 contestants, but he was eventually eliminated. Then after the Royal Rumble, he kind of started to proclaim himself as the new face of fear, and ultimately challenged The Undertaker for a match at WrestleMania 31, which obviously The Undertaker accepted, but The Undertaker did end up beating Bray Wyatt, of course.
Well, yeah, it wasn't Brock Lesnar.
It wasn't Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns.
Yeah, or Roman, yeah.
So you knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. And then after that WrestleMania, Wyatt was still kind of, they were, turning the tires on him, trying to figure out what to do after the Undertaker lost The Undertaker. So they kind of had him come in, and Ryback, kind of a name of the past also.
Yes.
Had him do a little bit of a thing with Ryback, who again was actually facing Bo Dallas. Again, he tied them together, the brothers together. And then he attacked Ryback the following week on SmackDown after that. And then from really that SmackDown episode, which was at the end of April, you don't really see him again for about a month and a half.
All right, so he would return at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view on June 14th. He interfered in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and he ended up attacking Roman Reigns, who had, in previous match on Raw, Roman Reigns defeated Bray Wyatt.
In the qualifying match to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match.
This led to a match at Battleground where Wyatt defeated Reigns with the help of the former Wyatt family member, Luke Harper. And that kind of reformed the team for right now. Eric Rowan was not present at the time. He was injured.
Yes, he was injured, yep.
So that led to a match at SummerSlam, which took place on August 23rd. Wyatt and Harper would lose to Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. And then the significant part of that, though, is the following night on Raw, we got a new family member named Braun Strowman, who attacked both Ambrose and Reigns.
The black sheep of the Wyatt family, as he was dubbed.
Yes.
And he's still running roughshod now. Braun Strowman is one of the most impressive big men, I think, in wrestling now.
Oh, I agree.
Maybe ever.
Just the athletic stuff that he can do.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely.
He was definitely very green back then. You could tell that he was kind of maybe brought up a little bit early, but he's definitely morphed into something really, really good.
Then the Night of Champions pay-per-view, the Wyatt family would defeat Roman Reigns, Ambrose, and Chris Jericho in a 6-man tag team match. And then at Hell in the Cell in October, Wyatt was defeated by Roman Reigns in a Hell in the Cell match, and that ended their feud. Mm-hmm. But then they would restart the feud with The Undertaker. The Wyatt family attacked The Undertaker, carried him backstage, and then the next night on Raw, Wyatt was confronted by Kane, who was attacked by the Wyatts and also carried backstage like The Undertaker was.
I wonder what they're setting up for.
I know.
I wonder what they're going for here.
What they're doing.
Oh, boy.
Well, let's find out. Let's see. This led to a match between the two at Survivor Series where Wyatt and Harper lost to the Brothers of Destruction. Obviously, that's the Kane and The Undertaker.
Yeah, and previously, right before that, in November 9th episode of Raw is when they came back and re-debuted, I guess, as the Brothers of Destruction after the attacks from the Wyatt family. So then, we had Survivor Series in November. The Wyatts lost, like you said. Wyatt and Harper lost to the Brothers of Destruction. Then at TLC in December, the Wyatt family defeated the Team ECW.
Yes, in an 8-man tag team elimination tables match. That just seems like a big cluster right there.
By God,
8-man tag team elimination table.
We had 47 tables lined up because that's how many we needed. Yikes.
Then Wyatt was originally supposed to face Brock Lesnar at Roadblock in March, but because Wyatt was dealing with an injury, they made it a handicap match where Wyatt was joined by Luke Harper. Lesnar won the match anyways.
And the premise behind that was that in the Royal Rumble, Wyatt eliminated Brock, and that was where they were going. It's interesting to see where that would have went. Maybe it would have been a WrestleMania thing. I don't know. If Wyatt hadn't been injured and they had to change course, it'd be interesting to see where they ended up going with that, too.
Now we're at WrestleMania 32. The Rock was there, and the Wyatt family confronted The Rock, which led to an impromptu match between The Rock and Eric Rowan, which Rowan was defeated by The Rock in about 6 seconds.
Yeah, in case you don't know who The Rock is, you probably shouldn't be listening to this.
No.
But, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, probably the most notable name besides Hulk Hogan from the wrestling industry, I would say.
I would say probably the most notable name we mentioned today behind Percy Watson.
Yes. Exactly. Or Yoshitatsu. One of those two.
Put that, Yoshitatsu, Percy Watson, The Rock. Probably.
Dwayne. He goes by Dwayne now. So, I mean, it's not even a thing. But, yeah.
All right. This is kind of a little weird. On April 4th episode of Raw, the Wyatt family attacked the League of Nations.
Can you name the League of Nations members without looking it up?
At my notes?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I have, it was Wade Barrett.
Yep.
It was Rusev.
Yep.
Sheamus.
Yep. And who was the fourth one? I know the fourth one.
Cesaro.
Oh, he might have been there too, but the one I'm thinking of that I know was in it was Alberto Del Rio.
Oh, Alberto Del Rio, that's right.
Alberto El Patron. So I just thought, again, interesting little tidbit there, but yeah. You look back at some of this stuff and you forget some of the factions they had.
I know. Well, what's kind of interesting about this is they're two heel factions that...
Yeah, weird. It's like, again, almost like they didn't really know what to do. They had a couple groups of guys together and they said, we'll just put them together.
But the feud never really culminated because Bray Wyatt actually got injured at a live event. So the feud never really took off to what it was probably meant to do. Let's see. The Wyatt family would return on June 20th. That's an episode of Raw, and they would get into a feud with the New Day. The New Day interrupted Wyatt during a speech. The New Day would later confront the Wyatt family at their compound before the Wyatts defeated them at Battleground in a 6-man match.
And that was in July of 2016. So we're starting to get closer to current here.
Current stuff.
I think we're going to probably cover one little more block leading up to Survivor Series of 2016. Then we'll probably have to call it for the present part of our portion to start next week because this is gone a little longer than we thought it would. There's a lot here. And we don't want to rush the episode for you guys.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to definitely do this as a two-parter. Yeah. We did not originally plan for that to be a two-parter episode, but just getting into it, there's so much information and material to go through. So I think, we're just going to cover a couple more notes here. We had the WWE draft in 2016. Wyatt and Rowan were both drafted to SmackDown, and Strowman was drafted to Raw. So on an August 16th episode of SmackDown now, Wyatt walked away from Rowan after Rowan lost a match against Dean Ambrose, and he left Rowan's sheep mask on the rocking chair that he had outside the ring. And then Wyatt confronted Randy Orton and challenged him to a match at Backlash, which Orton obviously accepted. And at Backlash, Wyatt attacked Orton before the match, and so he won by forfeit. Wyatt would then go on to face Kane in a no-holds-barred match, which he lost when Orton interfered. Orton then would issue another challenge to Wyatt for a match at No Mercy, and Wyatt actually would win that match with the help of the returning Luke Harper. And then on the October 25th episode of SmackDown, Orton interfered on Wyatt's behalf in his match against Kane and eventually joined the Wyatt family.
Yeah, it was an interesting couple of months there when you didn't have Harper, then you don't have Rowan, then all of a sudden Randy Orton's in the group, and you're kind of wondering what's Orton's ulterior motive rather of joining the group. You can't be just joining it to join them.
No, but I think we're gonna have to get into his reasonings next week, so that's a good cliffhanger there, folks.
Yeah, we'll leave it ... to be continued.
To be continued right there. So that wraps up the past part of Bray Wyatt's career. Like I said, we're going to have to do this in 2 episodes, so we will cover the present, what we're calling the present from 2016 on for Bray Wyatt next week in episode 6. And that will conclude this episode 5, Bray Wyatt. Thank you again for listening. We all hope you had a great holiday season, and we will see you next week right here on Wrestling with Wrestling Past and Present.